Welcome to the Can't Stop the Growth podcast, the home service podcast dedicated to personal and leadership development. I'm your host, Chad Peterman, and this week I am joined by a new guest. If you're ready to grow as a leader, you've come to the right place. Let's jump in. Hello and welcome to another episode of Can't Stop the Growth. Today I am very excited to have our guest on the podcast. Our neighbor to the north runs a tremendous company up there, fellow Nexstar member. Actually met them at a Nexstar event. I guess it was a few years ago now, kind of right during the middle of COVID. But without any further ado, would like to welcome Dayna Hottle from C&C Heating and Air Conditioning. Welcome to the podcast, Dayna.
Well, thank you for having me.
Yeah, absolutely. Excited to talk to you. I know that you guys have a lot of going on. We talked back in September, I believe, at the super meeting about some of the things you guys had going on there, and excited for you to share some of what you got going on and kind of things you learned. There's a lot to dig into as far as it relates to leadership and kind of a lot of similar thoughts that we have. Why don't we start off? Why don't you give kind of your story, how you got into the trades? I know it's a family business, much like ours here. So tell us a little bit about your story.
Sure. So I am third generation. So my grandpa and great uncle started our business in 1948. They were actually immigrants from Belgium, were farmers in our little area that I grew up in, Fraser. So they decided they didn't want to be farmers. They started heating and cooling from there. So my dad was the first college graduate of the family. And so he went to a small liberal arts college, Adrian College in Michigan. The day he graduated, my grandpa actually came to him and said, hey, make me this one promise. Do not come back to the family business. So, my dad made him the promise, actually went to work for Carrier Great Lakes as a TM. So we did that for about 3 to 4 years. And then my uncle retired, my great uncle retired. My grandpa passed away of a massive heart attack at the age of 53. So my dad was 24 at the time. The company at the time had 3 employees, my uncle, so my dad's brother, my grandma, and 1 service technician. So my uncle asked my dad, hey, can you come back, help us out? So that was in 1978. So my dad was just got married, just starting a family. And so came back, broke his promise to my grandpa, came back to the family business. And then they grew it to about, I think when I came into the business, we were about doing maybe 4 or 5 million. So I started in college working over the summers. I always hated when my parents talked business at dinner. I'd be like, can we not talk about C&C, growing up, high school, we don't need to talk about this right now. But I started working in college, just doing call taking, dispatching, and I fell in love with it. And so my senior year, my mom's like, hey, have you thought about just coming back and working for us? And they actually wanted me to be a comfort advisor. And so I said, let me think about it. And she's like, we're going to this meeting. At the time, we were members of SGI or Airtime. And so that was 2005. So we went to, I think it was Anaheim, and, saw Leland Smith talk. I saw the Bell Brothers, all these big names that were growing their business. And I'm like, this is like a legit business. It's not just a family business. When people always ask, what did your parents do? And I'm sure it's the same for you. Oh, they own a heating and cooling company. It wasn't like, I don't know. I wasn't super prideful in what we did. And I saw when I went to these meetings, the legitimacy of what we do and, the integrity that these people carried about what they do on a daily basis and what the trades provide. It just, sparked a fire in me and a passion to come back and, join the family business and grow it, to what it is today.
That is awesome. Thank you for providing all of that background. I think there's a ton of stuff I relate to, and I'm sure that there's a ton of stuff that some of our listeners will relate to. Let's dive in. I want to talk to you a little bit about, you mentioned kind of these big names that were growing your business,
Yeah.
and you mentioned being a part of SGI. Obviously, I mentioned at the outset that we're
Yeah.
both Nexstar members.
Yep.
What impact have kind of mentors or people that you've like sought out for help, like how has that aided in your guys' growth and maybe your kind of love for the business?
Sure. One of my big mentors is Mike Vertivogue from Vertivogue Plumbing, which is in Grand Rapids. They're their local heating and cooling company. And they at that time we had a thing called a profit platoon, and so we would discuss financials and see just operational procedures. And he took what airtime gave him and just ran with it. And they were a new construction business. I think, gosh, they joined in probably like 2000, 2008, 2009, dropped all of their new construction, went straight into the residential replacement and just ran with it and grew their business to, I think it was 20 million. But he's very operationally sound. And I think, that there's something to be said, and just no questioning what people say. They just do it. And I think, you know, people have a tendency to tweak things when, they see, oh, we can do it this way. I like that, but I want to do this, or, just change things. And sometimes you just need to get the plan and go with it. And he did. And he's been, he had a huge impact on my career.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think one of the other things that you said, that kind of that exposure to larger companies, and I think you used the word kind of gave legitimacy to what we were doing, and we weren't
Yeah.
just kind of a mom and pop running around fixing furnaces. How has that really kind of shaped? I know for me, understanding what the company is truly about really has shaped kind of my identity. How has that impacted you? I mean, obviously being in a family business, coming up through there, and then having the opportunity to work with your dad. I don't know how involved he still is in the business, but kind of speak to kind of how your identity has developed as you've kind of grown in the business and obviously taken on a larger role, as time has gone
Yeah.
on.
I think one of the things with me, I started out from the bottom. My parents never gave me anything. There was no nepotism with me. I remember the first time that, I started working full time for them, right out of college. And I said, hey, I think my husband and I want to go on a vacation. We'll take a cruise during the week. And my mom goes, you don't have vacation time yet. And I'm like, what? So like, I literally had to start, I was treated just like any other employee. And so I think that's really helped me grow. I understand, what it's like to be at the bottom, and to do those daily tasks that, I've had to outbound for calls. I've had to, call on collections. I've had to, and I always say, if there's something you don't want to do, give it to me. I'll take care of it, to an extent. If there's, a customer that needs to be rescheduled and you feel like I'll take care of it, because I don't, well, as a leader, I think, you need to role model the work that, you want to be done, and to see that you're no better than anyone else in the company. But, I had to do it. So I totally understand,
Yeah.
what it's like to do those things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's, great advice is, I always often think of having two little kids now. And I know you have some little ones running around there
Yeah.
too. But, I often think about what that transition would look like, based on kind of what it looked like from when kind of my dad handed my brother and I over the keys. And then, obviously seeing them run around, is, what would that potentially look like if I handed it to them? And I think that you bring up a great point of, not giving them an advantage. They have an amazing opportunity potentially
Yeah.
here, and that's great. But in order to realize that, there's a lot of work that needs to be put in, and I think that work is kind of the basis for creating that solid foundation. Whereas you see as many or more stories of where the family business takes a hard right hand turn into not such a great place
Yeah.
because of, I think, what you just said. So I appreciate you sharing that with the audience. Tell me a little bit about kind of your role now, and how that has kind of changed as you guys have grown. And obviously, I'm going to guess that you're probably not outbounding for call. I'm guessing you probably would if
If we
needed.
need to, I
If
will
it
do it.
needs to
I'm probably
happen,
the best.
yeah, you got it. But how has that changed? And then kind of tell me a little bit about the dynamic between maybe you and your dad as you guys have grown.
Right now, I am the general manager of CNC, and so my daily tasks are just making sure that calls are on the board. Operationally, everything's running. I get with my husband's the operation manager now. Get with my husband, make sure everything's we're booked, what's going on. We have our daily huddle. And then just, from there, I'm just pretty much available. I'm still really involved in the hiring process. I think that's important. It's pretty much my day to day. It's, just dealing with the day to day.
I hear you. What role does your dad have any role in the business? Kind of what's he doing now?
So he's kind of phasing out himself.
Okay.
And they just purchased a condo in Florida. So he's doing pretty much a week on, a week off, back and forth.
Yep.
But so he's our sales manager, but I have a very strong sales lead coordinator that helps him out.
Yep.
And yeah, so he said he's got a good 5 years left. Really, he's still the visionary.
Okay.
He's always been that type. He's a big picture thinker. And I've been the implementer. So,
awesome.
But I kind of have to now move into that visionary role.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a great point. And we've talked with a number of guests about, kind of that relationship. And if you're not familiar with it, it's terminology out of the book Traction, or Rocket Fuel, which describes that relationship, understanding, where your role is. And I think that's an important thing. And you've probably seen this as you guys have grown is, there are only so many hours in the day. So while you can do everything, like you can outbound, you understand that, hey, that's the best use of your time.
And right now we grew 40% last year. So we've really, one of the areas that we're really focusing on is our organizational chart, getting everything in line. And I think, you go from like $10 million business where you have people wearing multiple hats to functionally run the business. And then it gets to a point where they can't do that. So we're now moving things around, and that growth in 1 year was hard on everyone. We were pulling everyone, everywhere. So that's one area right now we're really focusing on is our org chart.
Yeah. Let's talk a little bit about that, mainly because I've got a little bit of insight into breaking companies by not thinking about things. What would you say with that much growth? What would you say was one maybe unanticipated area that really was stressed by that much growth?
I would say our installation department really was very, we had the bodies. It was just the amount of work that was coming in. It really wore them out. And so we now have, we have lead installers, or senior installers, and then apprentices. So now we have 4 apprentices all the time. We have 10 installation crews. So when we are ready to move one of those installers to a senior installer, we have an apprentice that's ready to move into that role of installer. So we've really focused on growing that area. We've put a lot of investment into that because, you know, those third guy on that job does cost us, but we've really been trying to focus on that department so we're not killing our guys all the time. Especially, you know, when you grow that much in 1 year. And I don't think any of us realized how much we were growing or how much we were putting on them. But, you know, it happened.
Yeah.
And, you know, in retrospect, you know, we could have done things to help them out a little bit more, but, you know, it was a great year. So, you know,
Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah, I think that's a great point in, you know, just understanding within the organization where we have a responsibility. If we're going to grow, how are we going to develop those that are going to help? Especially in a department that is so labor intensive. Yeah, you can run these guys. Yeah,
it's the most. I mean, honestly, it's the most important department in an HVAC business, and it's the most under trained and, you know, under overlooked. And, you know, those guys, they grind every day. I don't know how many times I leave at night and there's still 10 to 15 cars in our parking lot. And it, you know, I don't like seeing that. Like, I don't want to see the guys out on jobs that late. You know, we've always said too, like, there's a company in our area that, you know, the guys will work till midnight to finish a job. I don't want my guys out at a house at midnight. You know, that's not what I want, you know? So, you know, when I see that I'll text my husband and be like, you know, there's too many cars in our parking lot right now. What can we do?
Yeah. Yeah. We used to, before we moved into our new building, we had the apprentices would park at this parking lot we were renting that was kind of on the way out of our complex. Yeah. And I always told everybody I could tell what type of day it was by how many cars were left. Like, did we finish all the work?
Did we have a really good day?
Like, we got a problem.
Like, on a Friday night, I don't want to see that. I don't want our guys to have to, you know, be out till 7, 8 o'clock on a Friday night.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that's a perfect segue to something you put down on this sheet that I wanted to dive into, because I think it's becoming increasingly important, especially as, you know, we all battle outside things, whether it's right now it's gas prices or labor or COVID or whatever it is. And you put down something here, and I think what you just said speaks to kind of your understanding of leadership and who you have to be as a leader for the people that you're recruiting today. Tell us a little bit about maybe how your understanding of who you need to be for your people maybe differed from maybe your dad's philosophy. And I just want to let you know, I asked this question because I have a father that thinks the exact same way.
Yeah. So, you know, well, I'll tell you a story. So we had an installer that worked for us for years, you know, was actually a son of one of our electricians that worked for us. Became a a senior installer. I think she was with us probably 8, 9 years. And he came to us about 2 years ago and was like, you know, I just had a child. I can't work Saturdays anymore. Like, I'm done. I need to find a new place to work. And we said, you know, obviously we didn't want to lose him. We tried to keep him. He left. About 6 months later, he came back and he said, you know, I want to come back and work for you guys, but I can only work every other Saturday. So that was the condition. I'm not someone who believes in having this condition for someone and this condition for someone else. It needs to be straight across the board. But for this guy, we said, okay, come back every other Saturday, you'll work. So he comes back, starts working every other Saturday as senior installer, and, you know, every work day. Was just not happy. Just, you know, constantly saying, you know, this job's too big, you know, and he was a highly compensated installer. We valued him as an awesome guy, awesome installer. Just was not happy, constant complaining. And so he came to my dad, or he came to us and he said, I have to go. I'm not happy here. And we said, my dad's just like, well, what if I give you this raise? What if I give you this, this much raise? And he's like, no. So we left to work for a place that's an 8 to 4, no Saturdays. And I think that is where our industry is going, or we need to go as an industry, is not necessarily, we can't be killing these guys every day. They're not going to stay with us. We need to figure out a way that, they can have a family life and a work life. Their money's not an issue, as some people think, which my dad thinks it's about money. It's not about money. It's about that work-life balance. And, as a new mom, I used to be the person that would work 50, 60 hours a week. I had no problem working that. But right now, my kids are 1 and 2, and I don't want to miss out on those moments. I know it's a short window of time I have to be that, with them. And I understand now. I have a lot more empathy for people, which I never did before. I didn't understand it either. I was always about the money. I have a lot more empathy for people with young families, with families that want to be a part of their family's life and see their kids growing up. So I think, now we've already changed to our installers already work every other Saturday. My dad agreed. So it wasn't, so we changed our budget to not include Saturdays. So our daily minimum budget is now no Saturdays included. That's just extra money, because, we don't want people missing out on their families' lives. And we're going to lose employees if we continue to work the way that we are. So, and I've had multiple people say to me in the last, probably 2 to 3 years, that they see a difference in our company, that they've, been able to, there's a little more flexibility with our schedule, with people. And I think that's where we need to go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And I was actually having a conversation about this morning. And, I think as family run businesses, this is the great challenge, right? Because, both you and I were raised in a family where if our dad always up, always working, get to work, do your work. It doesn't matter what day it is, go, 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 because that's how their generation was raised.
Yeah.
And, I always look at myself as I'm a millennial. I think I'm on the tail end of it, but I've never really prescribed to kind of the quote unquote millennial piece, but I think that's because of how I was raised.
Yeah, exactly. I'm probably in that same one window. Yep. I'm more of a Gen X Gen X than I am a millennial.
Yeah. And so I think where we have to be conscious as leaders is we have to understand that those that we're recruiting they have different priorities. Yeah. And just because we found our sense of identity and pride in work, it doesn't mean it's wrong. It just means that the generation that we need to be on our team thinks differently. Yes. And it's about meeting people where they are. Just like that story you told about the installer, it was about meeting him where he was, not so much well, I don't understand why you don't want to work every Saturday. Yeah.
Yeah. And still my dad brings it up. He's like, he still brings up this story with this installer. And I'm like, Dad, we wouldn't have been able to keep him. He wasn't happy, you have to enjoy what you're doing, enjoy coming in every day. And if that's not the case, then, you can't work here. And, it's just, there is that generation gap, especially between, my dad and this new generation coming in. And I have to be that bridge between the two. So.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's extremely important. We have to, a mentor of mine once said that everybody is perfect just how they are. And we are called as leaders to find that perfection in them and then utilize it, create a place where they can be successful and help the company at the same time.
And find a role that they can,
Yeah, exactly. And I think that you talked a little bit about that in your sheet of really as this growth path for you guys continues, is finding the right seat on the bus for people.
Yeah.
And, hey, we've got some talent here, but what can they do, or what are we going to need them to do? Tell me a little bit about how that's been for you, as far as, it's never easy.
No, it's not.
But
And we had to make some major changes in the last year, and it's not comfortable at all. Telling someone that like you can't do that anymore. But it was necessary. It was needed. There's strengths and weaknesses in everyone, and not everyone necessarily is good with people or can relate to everyone. And we had to make some uncomfortable decisions this year. So
yeah,
it was
absolutely. Well, and I think that that's an important piece of leadership and just understanding of growth, is that, not all of those, some of the leaders that you have in your organization now, either one, won't scale as fast as the company does,
yeah,
or two, aren't willing, and I shouldn't say aren't willing, that is not their vision of where they want to go. They
yeah,
don't want to be managing 30 people with
yeah,
supervisors and this, that, and the other. They just don't, that's not where their passion is. And that's perfectly fine. But
yeah,
what happens is you've got to have that tough conversation of, hey, so-and-so, I have to bring in someone that can manage this whole thing.
yeah,
I know that that's probably not what you want to do, but you just need to understand that, you're going to be reporting to them, or whatever that looks like. But I think that's one of the growing pain. I mean, that's a growing pain. No one wants to have those tough conversations with people who have helped you get to a certain
yeah,
place. But in order to serve the entire company as a whole, it's imperative that we find the right person. Tell me
yeah.
a little bit about, you mentioned too, and one thing I love talking about is kind of the difference between management and leadership. Tell me a little bit about that difference and what you've come to
Sure.
learn about it.
It's been a hard lesson. But there's people that go to management or want to be in management, I would say, for control or power, not necessarily to lead people. And that's been one of our major discussions is, when 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 you're a leader of people, when things go wrong, it's on you. There's it's really you're the person, the support person for these people. You're not there, telling them what to do. You're there to support them. And there's we've like I said, this year it's really been going, do you want to be your manager, or are you a leader of people? And we want leaders of people. And it's for these new managers coming up, it's a learning process. And I think that's one area that we really need to invest in is, and we've really been talking about this, is investing in our management team to provide them the resources to become the leaders that they need to become. And we're trying to grow people within our organization without bringing outside, but there's holes we need to fill. But that's one area that we, like my husband and I, have really been focusing on is becoming a leader. And for some people, being a leader it's not a natural progression. They do need coaching, and that's where we need to step in and grow them.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that, especially, as you talk about, growing and you're getting, into that space to where you need kind of that management level
Mm-hmm.
people. But, often our first inclination is to bring someone, our top person out of the field,
Yeah.
and like, well, you need to be the manager. And really they sometimes they have the skills.
Yeah.
But oftentimes, having, often worked by themselves most of the time, that leadership muscle is something that they need to really work on, because in all actuality, leadership is about, as you said, taking all the responsibility while having none of the control.
Yeah.
And if in the second part of that is the hard part for a lot of people coming out of the field to grasp onto, because they've always had all of the control.
Yeah.
They're the best heating technician, they're the best installer, they're the best
Yeah.
plumber, they're the best whatever. But can you relinquish that control and put your focus on developing those on your team that aren't the best?
Yeah. Yeah.
To me, that's the key. And that's, as you said, where it comes to developing those leaders, providing resources for them to really, as I always say, how do you fill your leadership tool bag? You got all the tools you need to fix an air conditioner. Like you are, the cat's pajamas when it comes to really diagnosing that thing. But what, that doesn't make you a great leader. We need to figure out how
Are you jumping in and fixing it when the other guy doesn't do it?
Yeah.
Or, are you teaching them how to do it and walking them through?
Yeah, you got it. That's awesome. What tell me about, so I'm always interested to learn about and I know your husband's relatively new in this role. How's that dynamic worked out for you guys?
So we're actually, in terms of, we use culture index in our business to, put people in, not necessarily in certain roles, but, see their strengths and what role they would play. And we are exact opposites in terms of that. So for us, it's like perfect. Like we work very well together. I know there's people that probably it wouldn't be okay, but we're exact opposites on that, where he's very, I'm very patient. He's very impatient. He's very detail oriented. I'm more not detail. I'm more like out of the box thinking. So we complement each other well in terms of our skills, and it's worked out very, very well at this point. So
yeah, no, I think that's a great point, as we talked earlier about kind of visionary integrator, and then also finding those people who, for lack of a better term, are kind of your right hand when leading an organization or whatever it is. But oftentimes we have the urge to find somebody who's a lot like us, like, ooh, I like that person because they see it the way I do, where in all actuality that perfect mesh is, how do you complement? I need somebody who can do the things I can't do well, because I'm not going to do those things well, because that's just not how I operate. So I think that's super interesting. And, that's one of the things I tell, we recently just, our CFO, we needed to hire a new controller, and I made her read Rocket Fuel. And I said, here's the deal. As the CFO, you're the visionary of the accounting department. You're that. So you need that other piece of the puzzle that's going to help you out, that's going to help offset all of those things that you either shouldn't be focusing on or are maybe weaker in that area. And so she mentioned that helped her kind of view that in that light. So yeah, for sure. But there's areas in all our businesses that definitely.
So he went from the education space. So he was a high school athletic director for 12 years. And it was just time. He was just ready. He was burnt out. That particular role is very time consuming. Yeah. And especially having young children, it was just not feasible. And I've been trying to say, it's time, why don't you come? He'd come and work for us in the summers and stuff. And he finally made the jump, and I think he's enjoying it. So
that's awesome. Good for him. All right. Tell me a little bit. We've got some favorite books in common here, and I'm sure that there's more than the ones you gave me that we both like, that I have on my shelf over here. Tell me a little bit about what you kind of like to read, kind of what you're doing, how that helps your kind of mindset as it relates to being a good leader for your company.
Sure. I try. My goal is to read one, self-improvement book a month. And, I loved Atomic Habits. I love Good to Great. I loved David Goggins. What is that called?
You Can't Hurt Me. or
Can't hurt me. Yeah.
Yeah.
I listen to a podcast. Usually when I run in the morning, I'll listen to a podcast, just depending on the morning, and just usually industry related. But now with young kids, it's getting harder and harder. So I have to make that time. I usually actually now in my lunch try to break out time just to read. But I've always been a reader, and my mom always says leaders are readers.
Yep.
So I put that time away so I can do self-improvement and invest in myself.
Yeah. I think that regardless of what you read, I have been really on this kick here lately of like, my reading is not so much for like, I'm not reading for like a new idea. Like I get a lot of my new ideas from like talking to others and stuff like that, but it's more so accountability and just kind of creating an environment to where like I feel supported as being a leader. Like to read Atomic Habits, like, okay, I can do this. I have this. And I think the important thing for listeners to realize is, even when you're in a management or a leadership role or whatever it is, like there's always time to be improving, or that it's okay to say like, hey, I'm not in a great mood or I'm not in a great headspace. Well, like there's resources out there to utilize to get you there.
Or get away, take a break, get out of the office for a second and, go have lunch and read, or get away and just take a mental break. I think every morning I go for a 3-mile run. And it's just my time to like focus on me, focus on the day, what's going on, what do I need to prepare for? And I think that's so important, one, to move our bodies, and two, to have some time just to reflect.
You got it. Yeah. I mean, people ask me all the time, like, oh, I'm just not a morning person. I'm like, well, who is? Like,
make yourself.
Yeah.
I am a morning person. Like I am generally like, I get up, I'm a go. But I've now been doing this for so long. It's just a habit. Like I have to do it. And actually this morning I couldn't, because my baby woke up at like 4:30. So it's like, didn't get my run in, but I feel off. But it's been before, like I used to, I couldn't focus, like I need that for my day. Now I've kind of moved on. Like I'm not so fixated. Like that would wreck my day if I didn't start the way I wanted to. But, with kids, it's every day is different. But I'm very habit focused. I eat the same things. I, have my morning run. I think it's so important to have some kind of consistency in life, and have those habits that you do on a daily basis to make you feel better. And, to be the best version of ourselves, you need to do the things. You need to take time for yourself and focus on yourself and grow yourself. And, it's time. Yes, you might have to wake up a half hour, 45 minutes early, but it's necessary, and you'll feel so much better.
Yeah, I could not agree more. I mean, I think that a lot of leadership is preparation. It's taking the time to make sure that you're in the right frame of mind, because when it comes to what we talked about earlier of you having to take all the responsibility, we're not wired to do that. So you have to get into a place where you feel like, yes, I'm in my best self right now, and I am willing to take responsibility for maybe something that someone did that wasn't great. And could I have directly affected it? Maybe not, but I am in charge of that person, and I have the
I have to deal with it. It's on me.
Yep, I gotta make it better. Absolutely. Yep. So, whatever it is that you do, I'm a huge believer in the morning routine, and making sure I agreed with you, kids. My son woke up at 4:30 this morning, usually pacifier, and he'll lay back down until it's time to get up. Not this morning.
My kids are great sleepers, and today just wasn't. I was like,
not this morning. I was, and I feel kind of bad going on vacation tomorrow. I'm going to hand them off to my parents, and
he'll be fine.
Yeah, sure. But yeah, I mean, mean, they raised 2 kids. They'll be fine.
Yeah, they'll be
But
great.
yeah. So, well, that's fantastic. And again, Dayna, I appreciate you sharing all of this extremely useful insight that I think could be very, very valuable for those people that are growing a company, whether it's growing your people, whether it's, working to make sure that everybody's in the right seat on the bus, or just, from a mindset perspective. Which is key. So as we kind of wrap up here, what's one thing, as it relates to leadership and kind of maybe your leadership journey that you've learned that you especially want to share with those listening out there?
I mean, one of the things most recently is, this is more personal than it is, work related. It's just don't put things on the back burner. Just, I always live my life with timelines of like, I'm going to do this at this age. I'm going to do this at this age. And, you can't live your life like that. And I think that's, one of the things I've learned in the last, 5 years is things don't always go the way you planned it. And that, just to live your life with, and not second guess things and not, put a timeline on things. And I've always been, I'm typically more of a planner type person, and which is great, but there's things that, you can't control that go beyond your control. And that, that's just I've always been telling like the people that I work with regularly, just go with it. Be more flexible, go live your life. Things will be okay. And I think that's, it's been a life lesson for me.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is great advice. And, obviously, yeah, maybe relates more personally than business, but I think too in business, and as it relates to leadership, like you can't be you can't be a great leader if you're always stuck in your ways.
Yes.
This is how it has to be, or, hey, we've always done it this way, or, hey, my routine says that I need to do this. Like having that flexibility. One trick that I always have, especially as it relates to kids, like this morning. So this morning I was, reading my book and getting in my mindset and everything. And all of a sudden the monitor, it's 4:30. You're not supposed to be up right now, but
you're like hoping they just go all back to sleep.
Yeah, come on, man, just go to sleep. Turn it down.
Turn around, roll over.
Yeah, but
just ignore you for 5 more minutes.
Yeah. It's looking at it from a perspective, and this isn't natural. Naturally, my first reaction was, crap. I'm like right in the middle of this. I'm trying to get ready. Like, come on. But, you go make the bottle, you go up there, and then looking at it from a perspective of, this wasn't what I had planned, but I also get to sit with my son for 15 minutes and feed him a bottle and hang out with him. And like, hey, there's good in that as well. And guess what? My day, just because I didn't get to finish that chapter or whatever it is, like, it's going to be okay. So I think that's fantastic advice. I definitely relate to that. I think kids can definitely bring out that in us for sure, because you never know what they're going to do. They're all over the place. But no, again, I really appreciate you taking some time. I know you're busy to be on here with us and share your story and how your leadership journey has affected and continues to affect those on your team. So definitely wish you the best of luck. If you ever need anything, as always, feel free to reach out. Listeners out there, again, feel free to leave us a review. Jared and I are on our review quest this season to get 250 reviews. We're moving towards there. Jared's on vacation this week, so wish him and his wife the best of time. But yeah, leave us a review if you get a chance. Take a listen to this episode. You won't be disappointed. And until next time, we'll see you. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed what you heard, I would greatly appreciate if you would rate the show or share it with someone who might enjoy it. As the name suggests, we are always looking to grow, so let me know in the comments what you thought and if there is anything you would like to hear on future episodes. Come back again soon, and always keep growing out there.